Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking your time off to attend this seminar on this IMO 2020. I think this IMO 2020 is becoming like Y2K kind of hype. If you remember that in the year 2000, what will happen, a lot of uncertainty. And a lot of seminars are going on everywhere. As a matter of fact, me and Dr. Vis flown from Hong Kong, and we had similar, exactly same type of seminar on IMO 2020. We had been told that there are many sort of session going on. IMO 2020 is flooded. Class is handling it. Suppliers, engine makers, and of course people like us, other service providers. So we just asked ourselves how we can make it a bit different. And in Hong Kong, we try to make it sort of as interactive as possible. I think you have a lot of questions with regard to implementation plan and what is going to happen. And we try to do the same maybe. That will be in the Q&A session. But before that, we try to sort of get ourselves on the same page of the understanding of that uncertainty with regard to that IMO 2020 fuel. In that regard, we, as I say, we try to make it a bit different. Unlike the last seminar we had on IMO 2020, we just had some, our lab principal chemists and all, they have given you some speech on lab testing like GCMS and all this stuff. This time around, we, after this welcome address, we lined up engine maker because this is one of the concern, the fuel, what impact it will have on your engines. So as you see in the agenda, that MAN was ready to give you sort of some update on that, what engine makers view on IMO 2020, your concern, and you can ask a lot of questions at the end during Q&A. Followed by, I will pick it up from there, and then engine maker have the perspective, and as an outsider, and I belong to like one of you not very long ago, I used to work for a shipping company, so I'll have my view, and I have drafted some slide for that. So I'll have my own opinion on what MAN says or the chemical supplier says. After that, we have lined up additive supplier, spec, Martin Chiu. He will touch on how the additive is going to work, and then in your cleaning of the tank, because you got to really ensure that you don't have any non-compliant fuel. Maximum from 1st of March. It's supposed to be 1st of Jan, but maximum waiver you can get up to 1st of March. And then last of all will be addressed by Dr. Vis. If you remember last seminar we arranged, unfortunately Dr. Vis couldn't make it. Today we are fortunate, he is here today. And then of course whatever we speak, he can maybe relate those things and will wrap up with his own presentation. So hopefully you enjoy this session, and again join us in a dinner after the session is over. With that, let me hand over to Mr. Eric Jensen. He is heading this MAN in Singapore, and he will touch on the issue of IMO 2020 fuel. Thank you. Eric.
Hello everybody, to give overview upon the next year and the upcoming fuels on 2020. My name is Eric Carlsen. I'm just started out here in Singapore a few months ago, actually 1st of March. Before that I was in Holleby, and afterwards to Copenhagen, and then I was given the opportunity to come here. So I grabbed it, and next thing I know is that I'm on stage here today. Well, we ain't got too much time, so let's go on. Yes, preparing for next upcoming year of 0.5 sulfur content have given a lot of questions, not only to you but also to us. And it's not because that we have a crystal ball we wish we had, but nevertheless, let's share at least our view of this. I have here up front sulfur emission. We will have a little talk about the fuel definitions, the surrender condition, what is the sort from you, from other owners, and the stability and compatibility, fuel system, and the tank management. And I guess time is more or less passed on. As we see here, up to now, everybody knows it from now, but please realize that already at the moment we have around the coast of US and around the coast of the Baltics, CK area where the fuel where the sulfur is down to 0.1, meaning that we already have some ideas of what we can expect from next year. At the same time, you can see at around the coast of China, they're down to 0.5. When we are talking about those fuels here, especially what is so, for us, it's right here. It's a very low sulfur fuel because we don't know how it will react, especially because it's made out of mostly we hope those that are made out of the distillated marine fuels don't give us that much headache as they will for the residual marine fuels. The reason is the way it's going to be cracked and how many cat fines is going to be absorbed in this. Nevertheless, if we see here, we expect that those 0.5 sulfur fuel will be characteristic within the ISO 8217. That's what we expect. And if they are, then we will embrace it as well suited for our two-stroke engines. And this is that we do not expect combustion issues with regards to the very low sulfur fuel, as long as the characteristics are within this area here. Some examples of the fuels are the sweet crudes, which we don't expect any problem with, because as we all know, sweet crudes are already down to 0.5, where we go here at the hydro-treated residues, which are coming out of here. It is expected that cat fines will rise tremendously, and that can give us a heavy problem, both within our fuel equipment, but also within the combustion area of the engine itself. So those areas here is where we see the problems from next year on. As we just have heard, from next year, we are not allowed to have any fuel on board above 0.5, unless, of course, that we are running with scrubbers, and we don't know exactly how many ships yet will come up with scrubbers. Some owners informed us that they have a lot of slots ready to introduce those scrubbers on board, but the yards will be fairly, I would say, busy if they are to fill in all the ships at the moment. So therefore, most ships will need to be on compliant fuel. What we already have learned from those areas that I mentioned before, which are down to 0.10, that is that there can be a higher viscosity than with distillate, and most of all, the cat fines. Pure point, we don't know exactly where it would be, Therefore, it's very necessary for you to be upfront before you receive your fuel on board to know how to prepare for it. Compatibility, that's the next issue. And I can only recommend that you do your spot check on board if you're not already sure what kind of fuels you will receive, because otherwise you risk that you will not be able to pump those fuels. I have been in talk with Alfa Laval, who have received some very disturbing info regarding fuels they have got on board in the US, which were absolutely not comparable, and when they were cooled down, they were not able to heat them up again. They have to remove all the oil mechanically. And that kind of stories is not exactly what we hope for would come up to you guys. Again, the incompatibility of the different fuel batches, you have to avoid it. You have to avoid mixing up your fuel on board your ship unless you are quite sure that it's compatible. With regards to your fuel batch, also pay attention to the viscosity, especially the fuel temperature must be correct. With regards to viscosity, we can only recommend that you are absolutely above 2 centistokes. And again, talking about 2 centistokes means also that obviously if it's distillated fuel, you need to cool it in order to be sure to that be above, otherwise you will have leakage. And you could have sincere leakage from your fuel pumps if it's older engines, especially the MC engines, which are not having the same pressure from the fuel pump's viscosity due to the fact that the fuel pump itself will not have a high enough velocity to ensure you're not getting this leakage. Another way here is also be sure that your wax formation is informed up front, and I'm quite sure that there will be some very clever people here telling you exactly how you can ensure that whatever oil you get on board should be within those compatibility areas that you expect. For cylinder conditions, running on this low sulfur fuel gives a certain disturbance from our side. And one of the reasons is that we need to avoid having scuffing, which we have seen coming up on engines running with low sulfur. And in that case, we have developed a new ring pack. This ring pack is with coated rings, ceramic coated, and it goes for all the rings. This ceramic coated ring will ensure that you will not discover the same kind of scuffing that otherwise will be available due to missing compatibility within the area of the cylinder line. We have for the different engines at the moment, our engines running fuel. There is only the change here will be that the ring pack will be changed. It will not go so in the same way when we come to our dual fuel engines as they are built this way already, so you don't have to keep it in mind. For the old ones running still on the heavy fuel with the 3.5, there will not be any change within our combustion chamber at the moment. But again, we hope for and we are quite sure that the ceramic coated rings are capable of preventing any kind of scuffing. The cylinder oils, that's the next problem we are facing, because in the past we had between 40 and 70 BM, and the basic number is now between 16 going up to 100. But for the future, I cannot tell you exactly how it will be, but we are running tests back home in Copenhagen at the moment. And one of the parts that I at least can show you is you can see here the difference actually coming out of a low BN engine oil and a BN70. This is taken on shop test and sea trail, and just after sea trail you can see exactly how it looks if we are down to low BN. However, if we're running up to a 70 BN, it's cleaning the piston and cleaning the whole combustion chamber. And that means, actually, that we would recommend that we are changing the cylinder oil system. So we both have a primary cylinder oil for the low sulfur between 20 to 40 BN, and for the secondary cylinder oil we are going up to 70 to 100. And that is why, because we are talking about the detergency by our lube oil. And it seems, as you saw before, that the high BN number is simply clean away the deposits that we have on the cylinder and the piston. Therefore, it would be normal in the future to run your engine at low sulfur with this oil here, and then for, let's see, 1 hour for only 24 hours of operation, you will change over and run on your heavy BN 70, 100, whatever whatever we are coming up to make sure that you will clean out your piston. And this is also to prevent, of course, that you're breaking your piston rings. For the update, we can see that due to that we are running low sulfur, it will not be needed to have our RDL and load dependent cylinder liner any longer, so they will simply be phased out. So we will, and the cold corrosion will not be an issue. That's the good part of it. This was what I told you about before with the fuel pumps, and just to make it a little bit more clear for you, here you can see the ME engines, which are the electric engines without the camshafts. They have a higher pressure, and they already have their velocity of up to 75% from the start, whereas the old camshaft engines, they will only be down to 15. And that, of course, together with a shorter leakage from here, it will have, unfortunately, leakage of 2 centi-stroke oil, which could be fairly sincere. So please make sure that that your viscosity is as high as possible. And that means, again, you have to be over 2 centi-stroke when we are talking for the marine oil. 3 or higher is the best, and up to a maximum of 20. Again, your fuel analyzers, if it's possible for you, please try to get them up front from the shore storage tanks. That will make it possible to prepare for whatever you're going to get on board. Otherwise, it will easily be too late for you. We will jump this one because we have been here before. It's the compatibility of the fuel. Stability and incompatibility. As I said before, if you have a possibility for doing a spot check on board, please do it. Your engineers will normally know how to do it with simply blending the fuel in a little test lab on board, and to see after 1 hour, will it be possible to have a compatibility, or will it not be compatible? If it's not, like here, please make sure that it is, here you can see it, please make sure that your tank is as clean as possible before you get the oil on board. We have seen already right now on the 0.1 areas in the US that it was possible to detect a much higher condense of this sulfur in the fuel afterwards, and that was simply due to because there's a remaining high sulfur fuel in the tank. It's not easy to get rid of, and you will probably should use more than 10 times to get rid of this fuel unless you're going to remove it mechanically. There is a chance that the Coast Guard can fine you. Here you see, it's a bit overdue, of course, but in older days we only have few tanks on board because the oil was, it was possible to blend it. Today, in the future, there should be more tanks And that is simply because that otherwise you will not have the possibility to manage that type of oil that you will get on board from their different kind of suppliers. The fuel system itself, what we can recommend you, and that is that you make sure that it's up to date, that you have coolers on board with regards to your diesel oil, and you have heaters on board with regards to the fuel, for which you don't know exactly what the viscosity will be. It might be heated or far higher than expected. You need a viscosity meter in front of your engine, and nevertheless, also when it comes to whatever residues you have to come rid with here, please make sure that you both have it, 2 tanks, one for your distillates and one for your resident fuel. Up here again, you have 3 day tanks here for distillate, for ultra low, and for very low and high sulfur fuels, in order not to mix it up. We have some service letters that might be of interest for you. They go, so we send them out, normally you should receive them via your office ashore, otherwise please come to us and we will provide them for you. It's especially within operation of fuel of 0.5 and exactly what our best recommendation is up to date. Those papers will be updated as soon as we have any news, both from other owners but also from our operation departments, and they are made for you, and you should use it as much as possible, because it's one of the best ways to get informed of other people's knowledge within those areas. Here again we can see some of those service letters. The new ones is up here, operating on fuel and cylinder lubrication update for sulfur fuels. This is the newest, the newest at least that I have, but I get updates from time to time from back home, and it is our duty to make sure that you get them. So short summary here. Be informed of your regulations, the compliance, which already will come up next year, and make sure that the ship is ready for those implementation. Stability and compatibility, make sure you don't blend it. If you don't know what it's blend, don't do it. Different way of having your tanks installed on board today. If you're building new ships, make sure that you have more tanks than what you have been used for, because you will receive different kind of fuels with different kind of blends. And for our side, we will say we will have our recommendation to be with the thermal-coated pistol rings in order to make sure that you not receive any scuffing on board, and the fuel pumps must also be handled in the correct way in order to handle the viscosities of your fuel. Finally, but not least, monitor your temperature and your viscosity, cold flow properties, and the fuel viscosity between 2 and 20 centistoke. Cylinder lube, use the most recent guidelines that we have. We have several service letters with regards to your service within the lubricating oil, and they are the latest one. I received one actually 3 days ago, which I would happily be glad to hand over to you as well. It's the newest that we have. Otherwise, I will say, whatever you have of questions, just come to us and we will try to see if we can sort it out as soon as possible with the knowledge we have already. And please also share your knowledge with us. As soon as you have any information, please let us know in order to help you. Okay?
Thank you, Eric. interesting and becoming more complex, I believe. And so with this, I'm going to now touch on associated problems on the machineries, which will be continuation of the storyline what Eric tried to tell you from their perspective. And from the user perspective on your behalf, maybe I will bring up the concern about this 2020 fuel, what impact it will have. So mine will be covered by, so I'll have some introduction of Viswa Group, because many of you still believe that we are just a Viswa lab, but we have transitioned to Viswa Group for the last 3 years. Then straight away jump to 2020 compliance challenges, but I won't dwell that much on that issue. Then we'll talk about what SHIP can do and what Viswa, how Viswa can help you. At the end, I'll show you one case study on the sort of solution we provide to you all. So as I said, Viswa now is a group, and we have few verticals. We have inspection and testing, and we have Viswa consultancy, and we have software and abatement technology or scrubber. And of course, we have R&D, and we have commitment of part of our revenue goes to R&D every year. So these are the verticals we have: inspection and testing. You are aware that we have the bunker quantity survey and bunker ROB and all those things we do. But the difference is that our surveyor, unlike the surveyor of other providers, they are very skilled and qualified and very experienced. And not only they do the inspection and testing, they are actually our consultant. It simply means the same big wheel surveyor, actually they are trained as hazmat expert to do the inventory of the IHN. So that tells you that this surveyor is not like the other surveyors. Then we have software, that vessel energy efficiency management system, and that is again coupled with plan maintenance system. No software in the world right now links between these two. That means in case you have some problem with the PMAX, PCOM, ours can relate to what is the reason for that. It couples with the maintenance log and see when the unit was overhauled, when the injector was changed, or what is the maximum liner wear, whether there's any relationship is there. So that is our unique sort of system. With that, we also have the electronic logbook. Again, that's where we are different from others. Our ballast logbook actually is so, I would say, informative. You just have to click where you ballast, and automatically it will take what is the turbidity of the water and what sort of particle coming in and what sort of sedimentation you're looking at in your ballast tank, so that you can incorporate that one in your ballast water management plan. So whatever we do something better or something extra. Then we have consultancy, and we take pride in that, be it, as I said, even bunker quantity survey. When they do the survey, if you allow our consultant or the surveyor to do the condition assessment of your ship, which the superintendent normally does, and they are capable of doing it, and you can have the third eyes really to make the report of your ship. And he can do two things together: bunker quantity survey plus the condition assessment of your ship. So again, we also do CLO and the liner wear sort of relationship, and we do it for the life cycle of the ship, how many liners you need to change in order to sort of optimize the CLO field rate and how much you gain out of it. And then followed by, it's not only just a theoretical thing, our surveyor are trained to do under-piston inspection and advise the chief engineer to reduce the feed rate to what level, at what interval, and then followed by again another inspection, another scale-down analysis and all. So that also we provide. The scrubber is our last vertical, and we are doing fine with the scrubber. And maybe this is the platform I can break a news. As you all know that we have got this innovation award in the past from Lloyd's List, and we got a second award from Hellenic American Forum, for which I'll be flying tonight to Greece to receive that award. So it is the most innovative design in the scrubber, among the scrubber manufacturers. This is about Viswa. We are here since 1991, and then you can see that we have 9,000 ships and 650 companies, and the top shipping company also, we are fortunate that they trust us and they use us. We have labs in 6 different places, and good thing is that, again, to tell you that we have a new lab coming in China, because we realized that transporting this, the sample from China, it involves extra logistic cost. And it's not only for us, other lab also actually faces that. So we decided to have the lab in China by 3rd quarter of this year, so that you can gain that $50, it should be $50 cheaper, because you don't have to have that logistic cost borne by you. We have more than 200 ships with that beams I talked about. Energy efficiency management software comes with the e-log, and we have scrubber orders of 80 plus already. And then, of course, the fuel, lot of blending research and all. I think Dr. Viswa may touch on it, that many sort of oil majors are actually testing with us. So let's move to the topics I wanted to really talk about today, is this one. As you heard from Eric, yes, you can use the fuel without any problem. So it's without any problem. I would like to sort of bring up some argument against it, that is it enough to say you can burn the fuel? And that is why I have put in there, this is from Swedish Club. You can see that the damage claims were like 40 claims were from lubrication failure. Each of them was around, an average cost is very close to $1 million. And then poor fuel management, 344,000 around there per case and on the average. But these are the claims they made. But below that, there's something, that hidden loss, that I'm going to talk about, that we maybe don't look into. Lots of millions of dollars is drained in that hidden loss. This is, we don't have to spend time on this. This is a complex refinery process. It simply means there are many different ways to produce, and you can see that it started with atmospheric distillation, then vacuum, then catalytic cracking, hydrocracking, grease breaking, all going on, right? It's a very complex process. I'm not going to touch on this, but here maybe 2 remarks. What you'll find 2020 fuel in the market, basically it will come from refinery. Other one will come from traders. From the refinery, some of them will come through blending. Some of them will come through those hydrocracking, hydrotreating, and all this stuff. Hydrocracking, hydrotreating, all this will be expensive. The blending one would be easier, but to make blended and to be compliant, of course, the original sort of sweet crude got to be there, because it's very difficult to bring down from 3.5 to 0.5 unless you use a lot of very, very low sulfur distillate. So sweet crude, by blending, they will have some. Even mixed crude also, by blending, refinery will produce some. It's fine. Concern should be the one with here, highlighted. Traders blending, that you have to watch out how they do it, because the quality of those blending maybe will be in question. What did I do? Okay. Here, this schematic, you don't have to again worry so much. Only thing I wanted to highlight, all the cutter stock coming from here, this is the one is going to cause a problem. And then, of course, you can have all these are listed here, blend components and potential constituents, and what are the issues you can have. So let's talk about, as I mentioned, the compliant fuel, hidden loss. And then it will come from, because the sources are different, or even you buy from the same supplier, you may have problem. It's not that you can comfortably sort of mix, thinking that it's the same supplier. It may not be so. But different types of compliant fuels, but all of them will be compliant, of course. All of them will, one thing will be common, will be 0.5. And most likely, all of them will be very close to 0.5. Because if they blend it, why should they blend more distillate and all this to bring down below 0.5? So it should be ready, maybe some will be at the edge, and there could be a possibility that port state control inspection, you may have problem, because we have seen even during ECA and SECA, that all these, they try to make it exactly 1.5 or 1 and 0.5 and 0.1. And often you have problem, and all those repeatability, reproducibility, all this come in the question. Maybe Dr. Chris will touch on that. There is a guideline for that. Point is, it will be low sulfur 0.5. Let's say accept it. But then it will be different types. So when you say different types, then you can have, of course, sediment, MCR, and pour point. So you heard, and it was mentioned it will be different. But I'm not going to touch on all of them. Then it will take maybe a few hours. So let's just take the viscosity part of it, and then it itself, what impact you have, maybe I'll discuss in detail. So what are the machineries and system will be affected by this? First of all, main engine. And what will be affected? As you heard from even Eric, combustibility and other ones, lubrication. He touched both of them. Same thing happens to the auxiliary engine, no matter what make, the same concern is there. Boiler is another one, and doesn't have lubrication, of course. But with boiler comes another one, exhaust gas economizer. There will be impact on that. Then purifiers, there will be impact on the purifier efficiency also. I hope by now you all have IMO implementation plan. This is one of the plans IMO ever made so nice, so user-friendly. You just have to fill in some blank and you can make it a plan. They give you an example of how to do it. But then under that plan, tank cleaning and all those are there, and the changeover you heard from Eric, tank cleaning will be touched by maybe Martin, you after me, about additives and all. But I'll touch on again, you heard of segregation, compatibility, you will hear again and again all those things. But I'll touch on that cylinder lubrication part and the other one, the viscosity. And of course, I'll mention something about Viswa Lab support with regard to how we support clients today and will be in future. Just think of sulfur itself. It will be 0.5. What is the impact of sulfur? If in the audience, people like old people like me, in 1970s, all the transactions in IMRS, you see just the coal pollution, a lot of transactions were written. Because the sulfur was very high and coal pollution was very dominant. So high pollution with the high sulfur, yes. And then, as Eric said, another thing, he touched on jacket cooling water temperature. And then I would like to again bring it up, what should the jacket cooling water temperature? So if high corrosion or cold corrosion, we bring up the jacket cooling water temperature to prevent cold corrosion. Then we also used high CLO feed in order to neutralize sulfuric acid corrosion. Or we use high TBN, as Eric has also shown, go up to 100, 120 PN and all, right? So that was the case. But then all of a sudden someone discovered it's not all curse from high sulfur. There are some blessing. The blessing you have, again, my young days, we used to do the running in of the engine by diesel oil. It used to take 5 days, 6 days running in or bedding in for the new engine or the new line. But because the sulfur, it is like a control corrosion. So then we said, why not bedding in the new liner or the new engine with the heavy fuel oil instead of diesel oil, high sulfur, then your bedding in time is reduced by less than a day. So that was the blessing, right? So running in time was very, very shortened with the high sulfur fuel because the control corrosion. Now when come to 0.5% sulfur, that means we are going for low corrosion because by virtue of sulfur is less sulfuric acid. And then, of course, then what will be the jacket cooling water temperature? So I don't have to prevent the corrosion so much because sulfur itself is less sulfuric acid. Why should I maintain the jacket cooling temperature that high? So shouldn't it be reduced? Because it needs some corrosion. If you don't have some control corrosion, you are heading for a problem. So then what should be the CLO feed rate? And Eric touched on that. And then feed rate is 1, because now sulfur is less, I can reduce the feed rate. But you can't keep on reducing to the level because it's an optimization sort of problem, right? You can't keep reducing until you don't feed anything. So then compromise with low TBN, keep the feed same and low TBN. And then, of course, now you should be prepared that running in period, let's not overlook that. It will take long time. Your schedule could be affected because of that, because you're running in a new liner and all this thing, right? Okay, so that is about low sulfur if you have this problem you may have. But on the other hand, you see that it's so complex. But now we do slow steaming. If you do the slow steaming in a way, it's very conducive for the cold corrosion. So in a way, slow steaming, it promotes corrosion because slow steaming, right? Your load is less and you know that you dew point and all this thing put together, we are looking at high corrosion. So low sulfur, low corrosion, now slow steaming, high corrosion, and then what would be the jacket cooling temperature now? And then should be again CLO feed is a high TBN or not. So by putting all this together, what does it tell you? It is a multi-objective criteria. It is not so simple to think that, hey, low sulfur, I know what to do, and then a lot of things you really have to consider very thoroughly. And then I don't have to cover all this, but Eric has mentioned, but here we said, MAN said this, like you saw 15 to 25 TBN and all this thing. But he said he's not very sure even now, right? And then Exxon, the oil major, they say cylinder oil, it should be TBN. They are coming with 25. Blue oil coming with 20 PN. Shell said 25. And you know, so it goes on and on. For 0.5 and 0.1, they have come up with some low TBN solution. Point is, what we need to consider is this. Inadequate experience. Eric also touched on it. Engine maker, no one has the answer. One can say that we have seen 0.5% sulfur before, we have seen 0.1% sulfur before, but that's, bear in mind, that's only for the coastal, sailing. That experience you can't put on at a high sea when you're running at a high load. It is a different thing altogether. So that you got to understand. So what it means, you can try many things, but then this is what it is. You have to build it from scratch. Maybe you have to have your own experience. That's what we're trying to say. So it's not that you just listen to one side and say, okay, and then this is about just the sulfur alone. The other one, as I say, I just touch on the viscosity itself. When we have tested the oil for 0.5% sulfur, though there is not so many in the market yet, but we have a feel of it, what is coming in the market, and everybody agrees to that. It will be between, say, 15 CST to 380 CST, all of them 0.5% sulfur. Density could be 0.87 to 0.99, all 0.5% sulfur. So it simply means the spectrum now is very, very wide. It's no more homogeneous like before. 380 more or less, we know CCAI, density, viscosity goes hand in hand, is one thing. And second thing is that now we don't know what, this time you receive 20 CST sort of fuel in some part of the world, another part of the world you receive 380 CST. How are you going to handle that? It goes on and on. You say, talk about the cooler, chiller, next time you need the heater, one time cooler, one time chiller, one time heater. It keep on going. And then when I saw that lubrication side, you think of that 25 and 70 BN, you keep on shuttling every day, like to avoid the EG fire, every day you bring up the speed 1 hour. So now, because there's no good solution out of it, it is like manage it somehow with whatever you have. So viscosity, temperature, and the penetration length. This is my hand drawn, it's nothing anywhere. So what I try to show here is that if the viscosity is high, your penetration length will be high. Right? This one we learned. Viscosity high, penetration length will be high, right? And then viscosity temperature graph is here. We know about the injection viscosity, okay, fine. We also know, Eric also mentioned the pressure. But see this one, if the pressure is high, and then pressure high, penetration length will be high, right? Penetration length will be high against the time. Pressure high, penetration length is high. Pressure high, viscosity high, pressure will be high, penetration length will be high. Here, again, it depends on the penetration length or distance will depend on the size, diameter of the nozzle, right? Isn't it? And they call it orientation of the nozzle, not the diameter, at what angle the nozzle is there. Depending on that, you'll have what kind of atomization and penetration. Right? So, as I say, is the orientation and the size of the nozzle holes that define. And then against time, so if the hole dia is bigger, you will have more penetration length. And then, again, a hand-drawn one. It is the optimization problem. We learn penetration and atomization is to together make ultimate good combustion. Good combustion. So when it's a good combustion, it has to be optimal somewhere. The variables are atomization and the penetration. Right? So now the point is, and this depends on the nozzle hole size, angle of holes, the fuel pressure, and the viscosity. In a way, atomization and the penetration, they are inversely proportional. If too much penetration, no atomization. If too much atomization, no penetration. We need both. Otherwise, it's not going to react with the air, right? We need to penetrate through the air, thickness, whatever we have, and then it needs to gain small particles are atomized and mixed with the air. That's how a good combustion takes place. So if you don't have, what will have? High penetration, inadequate atomization, inadequate mixing with the air, poor combustion. You may have impingement of the piston crown and the liner wall. Not only forget about combustibility. You may have piston crown burning, the liner burning. So, if you stop there, what I said at the beginning, the hidden loss, fuel will be combustible, Eric says it will be, right? It will combust, it will burn. But will it burn in optimum condition? Lots of loss will be there, and in order to really, if you monitor, then you can find your SFOC will be much higher than what you have today, if the combustion is no good. So let's come to that understanding. Will it be higher if we don't do something? Now what can we do, right? That I'll maybe touch on that afterwards. So that is applicable for main engine and auxiliary engine. Of course, 1, 2-stroke or 4-stroke doesn't matter. The same thing applies. How about boiler? Similar thing. It's not a compressed air, it's not compression ratio like that. But again, the boiler has a similar problem because boiler, the viscosity is supposed to be 15 to 25. So now what are you going to put in? So one time maybe 20 CST, one time is higher, one time you have to heat, one time no heat. And again, that the nozzle you have for the boiler furnace is the same problem you will have, right? Because these are designed for those kind of homogeneous fuel we had in the past. So when you say that, effects of that low viscosity fuel and the solution, I just mapped out, it's not exhaustive, but at least let's discuss some of them. So your consumption, specific fuel consumption will be high due to poor combustion. It will burn, it will run. Then what are you going to do? Change the nozzles, change the timing. But I do it today. I change the nozzle and the holes, because it's 20 CST. Fine, But next time when I receive, of course it depends on injection viscosity what you maintain. That is another thing I have to point out. 2 CST to 20 CST. I see there's some change here. My understanding long time back, even maybe 15 years ago, injection viscosity was recommended between 10, 11 to 18 CST. Then now, when you talk about those kind of fuel, the very low viscosity, especially when you burn distillate, some of them below 2 CST, and engine maker initially said 3 CST, now they say 2 CST, and it can burn. Point is, where is the recommended 10 to 18 CST? Why we are saying 2 to 18 CST? It simply means it can burn, but not optimized. That's the point I want to say. So that means again there will be penalty for that. It cannot be same for 2 CST and 10 times more, the same kind of efficiency you get out of it. Another thing to remember that your leakage, especially when you are going for those kind of low viscosity fuel, and your leakage to the plunger and barrel will be very, very high, right? To the level that all of us know, even in USCG, they had even waiver when they implemented that distillate fuel, that some of them, even that's what I tried to say, the plunger and barrel, the gap, the clearance is meant for heavy fuel oil to be heated up to the level of 135 and 140 degrees Celsius. They will expand and the clearance will be just nice. All of a sudden you get 20 CST, I don't have to heat up. So if I don't have to heat up, it simply goes very close to the diesel oil. But the plunger barrel, by younger days, we used to change over plunger, coming to port, we used to change over from heavy fuel to diesel oil. But now all monofuel, we don't change over anymore. Even at port, we recirculate, we don't change over. So plunger barrel clearances, all this thing, is supposed to be taken care of, or supposed to be, they're baked in that when you heat it up, they will expand and the clearance will be nice. Now they are not going to expand, so you'll have a lot of leakage. If the ship is older, that means you already have one out plunger and barrel, it may so happen the engine won't start. That's what I said, USCG give you waiver. If you say my engine failed to start when I change over to distillate fuel. So this one I have to look at. Is the plunger barrel, the clearance, should it be the same? The injector nozzle holes orientation, should it be the same? We have to. But the good thing is that this fuel will have, if we go for distillate, and I think the assumptions suggest a lot of them will go for distillate, you will have higher calorific value. There are two reasons for that. One is sulfur is less, sulfur didn't have that kind of calorific value, 3.5 down to 0.5, so you have more meat in it. And second thing is that by virtue, like diesel oil and all this thing, we know that always it is, the calorific value is higher. The question is, your leakage to the plunger barrel maybe eats up that calorific value gain you have. Then you may have improper combustion. Your mean time between overhaul may have to adjust, because you saw what happens if you use a low BN oil, high BN oil, how it gets fouled up. That all these things you have to look at. Another thing, have you thought of with regard to boiler? If I have fuel, I have received this 20 CST, 0.5% sulfur, I don't have to heat up. If I don't have to heat up, because EG, bulk of the heat of the EG goes to heating up the fuel oil. If I don't have to heat up the fuel oil, then EG becomes redundant. Sounds good? But redundant means what? Can we run the EG dry? Can it withstand that high temperature if you run at higher load? Or you bypass EG, what are you going to do? It's not so easy, right? So we have to think of it, right? So the drain cooler you have, just think of it, in case you keep it running, your drain cooler can never cope up with the dumping steam. It's not meant for that. It's like a toy, small drain cooler. The name itself is a drain cooler. That means it's supposed to be in a water form, and then you cool it down, and then passes to the hot well. Now, it's not like a ship with a TG, you have a big auxiliary condenser you can dump. There's something called dumping steam. Yeah, you can't. Drain cooler can't take it. So you have to think again, what are you going to do with EG? Boiler consumption will be high. What are you going to do? Change nozzle, air fuel ratio adjust. But you do all this, but the next batch of fuel could be different again. It's not so low viscosity fuel. Then you got a problem. Are you going to change all the nozzles and all again? So these are the food for thought maybe. That's all I can raise. Another thing what we can do, again, impact of the viscosity alone on the purifier. So on board fuel handling, we know that you should maintain steady temperature, purify inlet, and then those are the things, how the three-way valve works and all. But then, okay, I just go here. The separation efficiency. You see that the particle size, if it's bigger, your efficiency gets better. And this is Stokes' law. You can see the particle size and all this. And then your viscosity. Density difference, if it's high, separation is better. Viscosity, if it is low, separation is better. So I said, I touch on the viscosity. So that's not all that bad. If the viscosity is high, you can see that if the viscosity is low, so that means if I maintain the temperature higher, the separation temperature 98 and flow rate is 100%, this is guard with cat finds on guard monitoring things, it brings down from 19 to 11. Again, the same one, if you maintain the temperature 115, same 100%, it brings down 21 to 6. So it simply means if you maintain high temperature, it simply means if the viscosity goes down, your separation of cat fine would be better. So purifier, the overall efficiency will be low due to variation in the settling velocity. Other one is how the, is thrown out, the settling velocity. Difficulty of adjustment range of, because the controller, it has a range, the temperature controller, right? So now if you go on the very low side, it may not be very accurate or may not even function. It's meant for on the higher end. But purifier efficiency low due to non-optimum throughput and change throughout every bunker lifting. And of course, as I said, if the viscosity is high, it is good for you. But then, if you do some adjustment, then again, next batch of fuel, you'll have problem. let's go on. I think I'm taking quite long. How Viswa can help. We have come up with algorithm in the past. Often we were criticized why we came up with the algorithm. It's simply because we have the big data and we know how to make use of the big data. And that's why we came up with the algorithm. Others may not have capability. And they will say, you should not follow it because it's not a standard. Standard, remember standard. Any standard, class standard, any standard, ISO standard is the bare minimum, bare minimum. So of course it's not a standard. And that's why we are different. So we have many of those things. We have engine friendliness number, purifier, is it working or not, efficiency number, we have problem fuel identification number, true worth index, it goes on. So we have many of them. So we have come up with EFN. We say, okay, if it's less than 35, you have problem. More than 60, no problem. Make it easier for you that you can have peace of mind. Purifier efficiency, we can see from here before and after purifier, then we give you something is drawn from here. How do you interpret this? We have PFIN number. I'll show you some case study on that, and I'll finish with that. If it's more than 130, you have piston ring problem. What is PFIN? These are the things you test: MCR, CCI, S14, RS, results numbers, and equivalent. You get PFIN number. We have done it. We have validated that, and we'll show you the proof of it. It works. Filter blocking tendency, this one we do it by the differential pressure and really run through the filter and tell you that chances of blocking and FTI. Okay, this is what we call extended peace of mind. So that means to say, last time we had POM, peace of mind package, now we extended it. And this comprises of GCMS, xylene, RSN, and all those things. And let me spend a couple of minutes here. This is the EPOM, the same one you saw. Then what we did, this EPOM consists of the big diamond here. And we have again separated them like this. Why? Because these are all step by step. We don't want you to spend too much money if you don't have any problem. For example, EPOM does the GCMS screening to find out is there any chemical contaminants there, 9 contaminants are there present. If the answer is yes, then you go comprehensive analysis. That is a bit expensive. If not, don't spend money. So we made it very sort of effective in that way, price-wise. And if it's no, you have peace of mind. You don't have to worry. If it is yes, even here, there's some of them SDI, if they are like styrene and DCPD and Indian and all these things is more than 100 ppm. This is another algorithm we have. Then we have fuel pump, plunger, scissor. This one we have seen. In this one, if it's not more than this, then also you have peace of mind. Don't worry. We tell you that. So that's how we provide you the solution. Again, Houston crisis, we saw 10 was, if it's more than 0.5, then we say do some more study because there's a chance that you may have this. Then you go for acid extraction and all. If the answer is yes, you have the chance of having this. If no, you have peace of mind. So all step by step. Here, again, toluene insoluble. If you have all this, you FTI analysis and the filter will block. And the last one here, PFIN, problem fuel identification number. This comprises of, as I said, all those things. If it's more than 130, we more or less tell you with a good confidence that 85% chances are there your piston ring will break. Less than 130, don't worry. So this is what it means. And at the beginning, if you don't do this EPOM, are you concerned about the fuel issues? And says yes, that do EPOM. If you don't, you still can run. But you are operating on a high risk. One thing, take a note of it, because we try to be very honest in a way. This one we have done the algorithm that was based on the present condition. Good example, your MCR, your S14 is on the high side, right? Now, when you go for 0.5% sulfur fuel, MCR will be low, your S14 will be low. So this algorithm is not going to work. And we honestly tell you that we are working on it, and new algorithm is in the making. So for 0.5% sulfur, we will come out with, again, maybe the name will keep saying EPOM, but that could be EPOM 2020. I'll finish with this one case study about the algorithm and make it very short. One client had problem with the piston ring breakage. They got the fuel tested by another lab. Lab say everything looks good. As per ISO 8217, the fuel is very good. Client changed the piston ring, again piston ring broke. More or less they nailed down. They went to an engine maker. Engine maker said, no, engine, everything looks okay. You have something to do the fuel. So client at the end came to us. The same sample, whatever left, passed to us. We did the analysis. We found this. Asphaltene is up to, this is the spec limit, it was high. And RSN, result stability number, was 11, should be less than 5. Then we say it's red, poor result stability. Xylene, these are all part of EPOM, and then PFIN, I mentioned these 5 things. And PFIN was 192. We said it should be less than 130. This is our algorithm. It's high. So what we did, we told them that to solve this problem, sometimes we say you should mingle with some other fuel. Sometimes we say no, maybe you use the additive. And we don't have any stake in any additive, but many additive suppliers tested us. We know which one works better. We said, okay, use this additive. And this additive was used. And then you see that PFIN number has come down, 192 came down to 72. And RSN from 11 came down to 0.2. And they did that, and then problem solved. So what happened at the end? They went back to the same lab again. See, now it's okay. But that lab says, look, that PFIN and all is not a standard thing. So that's what I tell you, say, standard or not, the client say, I don't care whether standard or not, but the bottom line is they solved our problem. Right? So with this, my last slide would be, there are 3 kinds of lab. First lab, just like a robot can do, put in the machine, and then give the result. Second one goes a bit further and gives you, say, okay, we tested it and you may have some problem with this field. But there's a third category, that's where we belong. So we give you the result, we give you the potential problem. At the same time, we provide solution. So that's why we take our credit. And many cases, even companies not testing with us send us sample when they have problem. So we are a solution provider. With that, I finish my, okay, last bit maybe. We have the apps, and you can, from the apps you can see your all analysis report. If it is no good, it will be flagged red, you know, so that is there. Thank you. So next speaker will be additive manufacturer in Australia, Martin Chu.
I hope those guys that have attended my last couple of seminars, please bear with me, there are not many changes. What we're going to talk about mainly today is about preparation. I'm going to touch very briefly on preparation because I believe a lot of people have done quite a bit. I'm going to focus more on what are the potential of fuel issues post-2020. I'm going to share with you some of the experience that we have with the VLSFOs and what are the issues that we see with MGOs as well. Just let me start with a quick introduction of InnoSpec because I don't think many people know us as who we are. Just a quick one, we're actually listed in NASDAQ. Our corporate HQ is Eaglewood, Colorado. Of course, we're an American company, but don't worry, we've got nothing to do with the trade war with China as well. We are neutral. Yeah, we have regional office all over, manufacturing site in US, UK. For the marine products that we sell, it comes mainly from France and Germany. Our revenue in 2018 is over close to 1.5 billion. Reason why we put this is because not to tell you that we're big, but the thing is, in the industry, people know that everybody, when it comes to marine chemicals, is only about WSS and true. Okay, why are we different? We actually have the expertise to treat the whole barrel of fuel. Okay, we treat them the moment they come up from the drill, pipeline storage. We have a lot of treatment in the refineries, terminal storage, heavy-duty vehicles, the car that you will drive, and the plane that you fly. But of course, myself, being a marine engineer, I'm only in charge of the marine part of the business in Asia Pacific. Yeah. Okay, we actually basically deal with basically all the oil majors. Yeah. When you drive a car, the RONs and the cetane behind the fuel is actually likely ours as well. Yeah. In InnoSpec, what do we do in marine? We are represented in the ISO 8217, 8216. A lot of you will be asking if the PAS, publicly available standard for 2020, how is it going to pan out? Just got an update from my colleague in UK. The standard is out, the draft copy. Voting is going to be there until the 2nd of June. I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes to the existing standard that we see. We're also part of the CMAC in London, International Council of Combustion Engine. I'm also sitting in the SSA Fuel Committee member. I'm sure a lot of you are here as well. Some of our products are verified by Lloyd's, and of course, some of them are by Shell Marine. Yeah, we have the no objection letter from the major engine makers, and these are the list of customers that we have today. Yeah, okay, about tank cleaning. Okay, I'm not going to debate about whether you want to do tank cleaning. I think at the end of the day, it's actually the risk appetite of individual company. If you see a tank like this, where you have stiffeners, longees, these are the stringers. The main height is probably 2.5, 3 stringers, longee. So what you want to do is, are you able to see what is up here if you put the staging? So it depends on what kind of risk appetite you have. A lot of people said, I don't need to clean. Some people said, I need to clean. So it's up to you. But what is the main reason of cleaning the tank? It's basically just these two. Sludge in the tank, depending on how much you have. Of course, again, depending on the configuration or the design of the tank. Some tanks are very clean, some tanks are not. Yeah? Sludge in the tank can potentially make the compliant fuel off spec in terms of sulfur content when you bunker on top. So meaning to say that when you bunker compliant fuel, if it's a VLSFO of like 0.48%, which is very marginal, and if you have a lot of sludge, that sludge, which is 3%, can actually make your compliant fuel off spec. Yeah? And another concern is, of course, the MGO or the compliant fuel, they are very paraffinic. What does it mean by paraffinic? Paraffinic means it can potentially wash out all the sludge that you have at one go. So you don't want to have filter clogging the moment you change over the fuel. And of course, in worst cases, you can even have starvation of fuel to the engine, and you can lead to a loss of power. Yeah? So basically, these are the only things that I'm going to cover. But don't mistaken us as a tank cleaning company. We are not. We are a fuel additive, and this is actually a dispersant stabilizer that we use to get the sludge back into the fuel. Yeah? Okay, and of course, what are the PSC doing as well? You know that you have the shipboard implementation plan. Port State have sent out all this to the owners. You see Paris MOU, Tokyo MOU sending warning to the owners as well. We have seen this equipment coming on board the ship. The China and Hong Kong and some of the other port states, they do have this equipment on board. I mean, they bring this equipment on board. Within a couple of minutes, when they take your fuel sample, they can actually check the content of your sulfur. So if they see that if the sulfur content is suspicious, what they'll do is they'll actually take the sample and land it ashore. So this equipment is available. A lot of people are asking us if we sell this. We don't sell them, but it's actually not cheap as well. This equipment is about 20 to 30,000. It's not worthwhile because you're going to use it only for a short period of time. This is something that the port state will do to check compliance on the ship. Yeah, of course, we have seen captains on ships being fined as well. Okay, this is of course a tank that have used our additives. I cannot say that because this is the cause of the additive, because the tank is designed well, the slope is there. So, but here on the longees, they are relatively clean. Yeah, what you can see is only at the bottom here, which is left with this. So a lot of people came to tell us, what are we going to do with this? I mean, I'm not so concerned about the little unpumpable there, but the only thing is I'm concerned about the sediments that you find down below. So a lot of people is asking us, do we really manually need to clean this? From the engineering point of view, I would say yes. Why is it so? Because if you see how the chemical works, which I'm going to share with you in the next 2 slides, the chemical is just going to change the asphaltenic sludge back into the fuel. And what is actually left behind could be sediments, aluminum silica, and rust from the tank, which is not wanted. So you don't want to put in MgO, and then you flush this, and it goes into your engine. So some people are saying that I'm not going to clean. There's the reason why I'm going to use additive because of this. So what I can recommend is, if you don't really want to clean, you can put some MgO inside, maybe 1 or 2 tons, and then you dispose it, or you can put it in a boiler, because boiler is not so sensitive to cat fines and sediments and rust. But try not to put this into the engine. That's our recommendation. Yeah. Okay, how our additives actually work. When we talk about sludge, most of the time we are talking about asphaltenic sludge. So if you see this, there's SARA, S-A-R-A, saturated aromatics, resin, and asphaltenes. Okay, these are actually asphaltenes. They are being protected by something called resins and being kept afloat with a good ratio of aromatic and saturates. So what happens when the fuel is actually blended or when it's put into refineries? It creates instability, which actually takes great polarities, which takes away the resins. So when the resins is away, the asphaltene actually agglomerates and they start to form sludge. So when they're too big, they'll sit at the bottom. And this is what we do. We introduce something called a dispersant. And the dispersant actually replaces the missing resins. And this is how it looks like. And this continue to go into your engine and burn. So for tank cleaning, what we do is we put in more dispersant and it actually reverses the process. So what we're trying to say here is there's no way chemical can dissolve metals. Aluminum, silica are metals which they use as a catalyst in the refinery, which Mr. Koshet explained earlier. So any question on this, you can ask me later. I'm going to touch on the compliant fuel. I'm sure a lot of you will know these are the few options that you have. LNG, I'm not going to talk about this. Scrubber, you guys know what is scrubber. Compliant fuel, mainly we have MgO, and we have the very popular 0.5 sulfur fuel. So I'm going to break this down as well, which you can see here. You have the typical marine gas oil, which is 0.5 DMA to DMZ. Then you have got the very popular VLSFO. It's blended below 0.5% sulfur from various suppliers. Today, we are talking to many of them. If you want in more detail, I can share with you what the people we talk to, but not in this platform. Viscosity is ranging from 20 to 160, averaging at this. A lot of people is asking us, what are we going to do with this? There's no consistency in this. At this kind of viscosity, you still need to heat it because the injection viscosity recommended into the engine is 13 to 12 to 13 CST. Yeah. Who are the people that is able to produce this? You have seen in Mr. Koshet's slides. Oil majors are doing it, the blenders are doing it, traders are doing it. Are you going to get a consistent fuel? Answer is actually not, which I'm going to share with you later. We also have seen an increase of this as well. HFO is being desulfurized. Who are the people doing this? Some of the oil majors have actually invested $1 billion of desulfurization unit in the refinery. More and more are coming. Today, SK Energy, Korea, Shell, Exxon are doing this as well. So this one is actually not so bad. In the past, if you remember, you have this 1.0 sulfur fuel for ECA, right? Yeah, that was before 2015. So the same thing they're going to do. They're going to desulfurize this, and the viscosity is going to range from 180 to 500. And of course, a lot of you are talking about sweet crude as well. Sweet crude in general, they have natural low sulfur. So what they'll do is they're only concerned with the flash point, and they're going to do a light distillate. So they're going to burn off the distillate of the light components, and then you will have sweet crude. But the problem with sweet crude is today, it is only 5% of the total crude in the world. So everybody will want to go for sweet crude, but is there so much of sweet crude? The answer is, I don't know. Yeah? Okay, VLSFO, what are the main problems? You have long-term stability. it's a blended component, compatibility. CAT fines, we have a question mark there because we have seen a lot of samples that we have taken, we have tested. We don't have as much sample as Viswa, of course, with the oil majors. We are seeing relatively low CAT fines. But is this representative of what we're going to see post-2020? The answer is actually no. What we see today, what we contract today, what we're going to get later might be different. Yeah. Okay, there are also talks in the industry saying that, you know, because of stability, the fuel will come with an expiry date. It's going to be like the milk or the bread that you buy. You know, if you bunker the fuel 1st of Jan, blah, 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 you're supposed to finish it by 30th of March, that kind of thing, because nobody wants to take the responsibility if your fuel is not stable after that. Yeah, this is actually a courtesy of Shell. Okay, what is the meaning of stability? Stability refers to the ability of a single stream to remain stable. Yeah, okay, stable. And then what is compatibility? Compatibility is referred to the ability of two separate stable streams to give a stable blend after mixing. So meaning when you have stable, stable, and then after that stable, this is compatible. Stable, stable, and unstable, this is incompatible. So the oil majors or the traders or whoever that supplies you the fuel, they will want to give you something that is stable. Yeah, they have to give you one that is stable. But when it comes to incompatibility, it is the ship owner's problem, because they never said, you know, in the clause that they're going to give you later, they're going to tell you that please try not to mix them if possible. So this is something that they're going to give you. This is something that you have to find out yourself. Yeah. Asphaltene are generally stable in aromatic streams and unstable in paraffinic streams. So paraffinic stream are the MGO, the compliant fuel we're talking about. So we can see that increased amount of LS paraffinic stream that come into 2020 may lead to more incompatibility issue. This is what they say as well. Incompatibility may be managed either by smart blending or by use of asphaltenic dispersant for borderline cases. Actually, blending is a very experience-based kind of thing. But today, the new compliant fuel, even the most experienced blenders, they don't have really the experience to do it yet. Yeah, in the past they are doing a lot. It's actually all through experience. Okay, what we have seen is residual stream produced in a refinery exported. Well, this is not important. What they're doing is, what they're saying is, refineries, even the oil majors, this is what they do in the past to give you your intermediate fuel oil. But tomorrow, they're still going to be importing this, something that is going to come in, and then they're going to give you the final product. This is something that nobody can control. You know, whatever that you can get at the lowest cost to bring down the cost of your final product, this is what they're going to bring in. Because ISO don't actually limit one of the things that you can't use, except for a few of the chemical components. Okay, the final blending is run at a terminal to the specification required by customers. So if you want to buy 380, like now 380, 500, this is what they do. They blend it and they give it to you. Understanding how IMO is going to impact product key in making the transition successfully is very important. IMO 2020 introduction of 0.5% fuel may see an increase of blending component that is prohibited. What are the things that it can potentially use? Vegetable oil, waste from polymer industry, and all this, cutter stock, VGO, everything will actually come down. It will come into the blends. The only thing they want to achieve is your 0.5%. Yeah, we have seen a lot of sea trials as well. Of course, these trials are done by the oil majors to the owners as well. We have seen, you know, the Rotterdam fuel, you have high CCAI. This is actually very much related to the combustion property. Of course, this is a calculated index. Very low CAT fines. You see the green ones are actually quite good. So in fact, the fuel are not so bad. But again, it is actually not completely smooth sailing. We have seen during the trial, if you can see here the dates, they are all very recent. This is December 2018. In the trial, I think they have actually not segregated the fuel properly. This is what they see. And of course, what is the highlight of this is make sure that you have good segregation. So is it possible all the time? Yes, on some ships and not on some. We have also seen this happening in the tank. If you look at the date, it's actually even more recent. It's actually in 2019. What happened is that they have actually mixed the fuel, and this is what happened. And when they tried to heat it up, it's actually not possible to actually reverse the process because the lighter component of the fuel is being consumed. So when they consume the lighter components and when the pump stops taking suction, Then only they realized that, you know, they need to go into the tank, and when they go into the tank, they found this. So they tried to heat this up to like even 80 degrees. It is not reversible because the lighter components of the fuel is gone. It's only left with the bottom. If you have done the heating initially, yes. Yeah. So what is the problem here? We see that the oil majors or whoever that is actually going to be supplying you the fuel have given you these guidelines. So what are the guidelines? They said compatibility. Make sure you don't make sure you don't mix them if you're not sure. But how sure are we with the spot test on the ship? We're not sure. Okay, storage, fuel handling. What storage? I can see that a lot of smaller ships where you have limited tanks, you have issue because some of them, a lot of them, the car carriers, they actually bunker on top. And then what's the issue? We have also seen like the older ships where you have one settling tank, one service tank. It is actually unavoidable that you will mix the fuel when you change over. When you have two set tanks, two service tanks, it is possible to actually segregate them. Yeah, fuel handling, purifier, you need to use them, of course, depending on what kind of contaminant cat you have, changeover process, engine consideration, I'm not going to cover that, they have spoken a lot of that. Loop oil as well, even used in the boilers. Okay, that's all that we have for BLSFO. I'm going to talk a little bit of on MGO as well. Okay, the reason why we say that, you know, if you don't have a scrubber, that 4-option fuel is something that your ship will see in the lifetime. Why are we saying that? Because we know that MGO will still be the most expensive among the 4 combined fuel, after that be followed by BLSFO. Your charterer will want to supply you the cheapest fuel. But again, it is cost versus availability. So if it's not available, MGO is more available. So depending on you know, what is available and what cost they will supply you. So this is actually going to be touching on the distillate fuel. A lot of people in the industry is also saying that, are we moving from the problematic residual fuel to the less problematic distillate fuel? The answer is actually no, because if you can see here, residual fuel have got their problem, and of course distillate fuel have got different sets of problems. And some of them are not even here. For example, lubricity and cold filter plugging point. Why is it not here? Because the older standards of the ISO 8217 actually don't test them. So when you don't test them, you don't have a statistics. I'm going to share with you what are the changes in the ISO 8217. So you can see here very clearly 2013, 2014, 2015, we see a rise of distillate fuel problem. This is the time when ACAR started using the MGO. So this was actually a sharp rise here. And of course, it's coming down again with people with more experience. And then it is actually there, you know. This fuel, they have different sets of problems. Okay, the changing standard, if you look at this, this is the marine distillate fuel 2005. I'm not asking you to remember all this. I just want to highlight to you that the 2010 version, you have addition of this, acid number, oxidation stability, lubricity, hydrogen sulfide. And of course, if you have in the 2017 version, you have actually even the introduction of FAME, DFA. DFA means you have 7% of fatty acid ethyl ester. I will tell you why this is actually introduced. And of course, you have the very popular cold filter plugging point. A lot of people today are bunkering to the old standards, but when your ship are going to colder climates, and if you want to check, better include this. Yeah, better include this in the report, in the test, because we have seen a casualty a couple of years ago. Okay, you have this distillate FAME. Okay, why is this introduced? Because ISO know that very soon, after 2020, the marine industry might be competing with the automotive diesel for MGO. And this is actually there, the FAME is actually in the European diesel. So tomorrow when your ship go to Europe, when you go and buy MGO or marine, if you can't get it, very likely you get it from automotive diesel, which contain FAME. Yeah, I'll share with you what is the problem with FAME as well. Okay, and of course this one as well, CFPP, cold filter plugging point, which I'll share with you later. Okay, basically when we talk about low sulfur MGO, what are the problems that you likely potentially can see? We have this stability, and then we have lubricity, cold flow, and microbills. Okay, stability, like I mentioned, it's actually included in the 2010 version. Okay, what can you see when you physically see the fuel? The fuel actually looks like this, and it will change when it's oxidated. of course the color will not so concern, but the problem is when the fuel is black like this, it means that the fuel is oxidated. What will happen? Of course, you need to use additive to make sure that that is not happening. Okay, when you have oxidation, it actually causes acidic gum formation, and this can actually lead to pitting in fuel tank like this. Have you ever been to a shipyard where after cleaning your MGO tank, I mean, you find that there's actually a sediment and very soft gum at the bottom? After you clean up the bottom, because most of the fuel tank are not coated. So when you clean up the bottom, it is actually pitted like this because the acid is actually acidic. Yeah? The gums are actually acidic. It causes fuel line corrosion as well. Filter clogging, of course the gums are the one that causes the filter clogging. Yeah. Okay, lubricity. Okay, lubricity, a lot of people have mistaken it. It's actually the intrinsic ability of the fluid to prevent wear and tear on contacting surface. It is actually in the 2010 version and not in the older version. What you do is you're trying to measure the scar size that is created when you rub two metals together with the fluid in between. Yeah, this is what we have seen, fuel pump premature failure. Okay, is this something really new? To say that's why it's not, because InnoSpec, we have the expertise from the other industry which we are bringing to marine today. So we have seen that European automotive standard, okay, all this came because they started desulfurizing their fuel. So when they removed the sulfur from their fuel, in 1996, European standard have actually introduced this. Yeah, various countries have actually introduced this, different dates on the lubricity for the fuel, specification for the fuel. So when did Marine do it? Marine did it in 2010 version, where you see the lubricity. But of course, post 2020, when we actually desulfurize the fuel, you will see this happening more often. Yeah. So our standard is 520, which is similar to the US automotive diesel. So tomorrow, when you bunker your diesel in any of these countries, the sulfur can be actually even lower. And if you see low sulfur, please make sure that your lubricity is good. If you don't test them, basically you're blind. You're just taking a chance. What are the chances? We don't know. The lower the sulfur content, the higher the failure is going to be. That's all what we want to say. But of course, this fuel for the land-based industries, they're all doped with additives as well. But for the traders, they know this fuel is actually going to the land-based automotive. They will test them before the terminal and they will dope additives. But when this is going to the ship, they will not spend a cent, even a cent, to put it into the fuel. Yeah? Okay, what is the next problem? We've seen this, of course, post 2015, we have seen this a lot. This is a cold filter plugging point, which we see in the engine room. This is something that you see in the tank. I think I saw the same photo as well. So what is happening is when the fuel is too cold, it forms something called crystal. And this crystal is there and it actually starts building up and it blocks the filter and it can't pass the filter. So what we're trying to do is, we actually, in fact, the biggest cold flow improver treatment company in the world. So this is how the crystal looks like. What we do is, with a cold flow improver, we are changing the structure of the crystal. So from this large crystal, we are changing it to the needle type kind of structure so that it can actually pass through the filter without causing any problem. Yeah. So what we can do is, you have 3 points, cloud points, cold filter plugging point, and pour point. Cloud point remains the same with a cold flow improver, but we can suppress the CFPP and the pour point. Yeah, this is very important. This is for the ship that operates in a very extreme cold weather condition. In the past, we have seen cases like this in New York and above, Rotterdam and above. But tomorrow, with the implementation of IMO 2020, you potentially can see this even in modern China, Japan, and Korea as well. Because in the past, we never used MGO in this part of the world. Yeah, this is a very good test that is recommended by CMAC. What they ask you to do is, whenever you take this sample, if you're not spending any money in the lab, of course we say that to be safe, it is better to do a test. If you're not, you can do this test, take this sample, put it in the fridge room, and if you see the cloud point at, for example, 20 degrees, then you have a big concern, because cloud point and CFPP, there's a general rule of thumb, it's going to be 12 to 15 degrees is here. But sometimes you have seen even at 20 degrees. So if you see this guy coming up at 20 degrees, you have a concern. But if you see this guy coming at like 5 degrees, then you're pretty sure that this guy, CFPP, is much lower. You get what I mean? Yeah? So this is basically on the ship, you can't see CFPP, you can only see dot point. Yeah? Okay, and the last one is of course FAME. Okay, what is FAME? We have biofuel coming into marine. Okay, pure FAME is B100. B5 is biodiesel with 5% and 95% conventional diesel. In Europe, we are seeing B7. That means to say that EN 590 European diesel standard allows up to 7% FAME. This is why we have included this in ISO 8217-2017. Yeah. And in Indonesia, we have seen shipping using B20 as well. Okay, biofuels, they are actually made of all sorts of vegetable oil. You have palm oil, corn, wheat, and they look like this. So what is the problem? In the past, the bacteria, yeah, could possibly come from vents, the air, water, ballast water that comes into your fuel. But today, IMO 2020, this can potentially come in the biofuel, the FAME, which is blended with the fossil fuel. That means to say that this bacteria comes with the fuel. Why is it coming with the fuel? Because when you take the vegetable oil, they tend to have bacteria. Yeah. So it is actually even a worse condition, because in the past, if you have high sulfur, sulfur is an antibacterial, kills bacteria. So bacteria don't like sulfur. But today, the bacteria are very happy because the fuel is low sulfur. Yeah. So this can be caused by algae, fungi, bacteria, and all this. And this kind of bacteria, they actually feeds on hydrocarbon, meaning to say that it's consuming your fuel, and it needs water and air, and it's easily found in our marine environment. So what happens is, if you have this biomass here, and if you have water and you have fuel, this guy will grow. It will grow into an extent where it actually corrodes. It's like a skin which is rotten. This is actually all caused by bacterial growth. Yeah, it actually corrodes your fuel pump and fuel system. We have also seen tanks which is corroded at the bottom, and this is actually happening a lot also in the yacht, pleasure craft. They keep the oil there for a long time. They see this a lot. Of course, they don't have this kind of tanks. The tanks are fiber. Yeah, they don't see this. Okay, what are the things that you can do? Of course, if possible, you try to avoid prolonged storage of this fuel for over 30 days. Yeah. Drain the water. There's a lot of condensation. Not many of us actually drain the MGO tank. We drain the HFO tank. That's the standard practice on board. But if possible, try to drain the MGO. But it's not easy because there's a lot of condensation, especially in this kind of weather condition. Periodical testing of a fuel with a test kit. I'm not sure if Viswa can do this as well, but I'll introduce you to this shortly. Of course, you can use a biocide chemical to prevent. Yeah, it's an antibacterial to kill the bacteria. Okay, so what is this testing kit? This kit is available, and you can actually put it on board. We know on the ship today you use test for boiler water, jacket water, and this test can be done on board the ship. So you take the spill sample, you put it to this test. If you see this, you know that there's bacteria, and it remains like this. This one also is like bacteria. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to see if your MGO that you have kept for a long time contains bacteria. If it's not, then it's safe to use. I'm not sure if Viswa Lab is able to do this. I'm sure you can as well. Yeah. So what is the last problem with LSMGO? I think you guys have spoken about viscosity, so I'm not going to spend so much time on this. I think it's very true. We need something like above 2 CST. There's a very common misconception even today. People are asking us, is it true that when I have good viscosity, my lubricity is taken care of? So if you know, I mean, from a very basic engineering point of view, viscosity is actually depending on your temperature. Despite whatever temperature you can increase your viscosity, your lubricity test, the 520 micron will still fail. Yeah. But the thing is, in marine industry, we have the concept that the fuel pump is being lubricated by the heavy fuel oil. Heavy fuel oil usually have very good viscosity. So that is a common misconception. So it's actually not. Viscosity is depending on temperature. Lubricity is an inherent property in the fuel. whether it's dry or it's good in lubricity. That's all I have. Chiller, cooler, maintained at this temperature, 20 to 35 degrees. Yeah. Okay, what is InnoSpec position? We know that there are actually two potential scenarios with 2020 VLSFO. We are doing a lot of work with the suppliers, oil majors as well. We know the suppliers are trying to meet the ISO 8217 standard, that's for sure. If they don't meet this standard, they can't supply you the fuel. If they supply you the fuel, you actually can go back to tell them that your fuel is on spec. Ship owner and managers concerned that are not identified in the ISO 8217, for example, compatibility and waxing, and actually many more. So what we're trying to say is, your concern will be, you're getting a fuel that is on spec, but when you run the ship, you have a problem. Yeah. So what are we doing? Oops, on this game. Sorry. So we are working with the suppliers, vendors, the oil majors, which are looking into the issue of pour point, high TSP. When you desulfurize the heavy fuel oil, you get high TSP. Pour point is because the blend, we understand that the blend, the raw components that they're going to put in the blend have got very high pour point. I'm quite surprised to find out that these blends, this component have actually got higher pour point than HFO as well. So when the ultimate thing is they try to solve this because, for example, one of the oil majors that is blending the VLSFO from Singapore, blending facility in Singapore, they don't have heater. Even the barges, they don't have heating capability. They are saying that they are supplying the same oil in Hong Kong. So, but when you supply this same fuel with high pour point in Hong Kong during winter time, which is 18 degrees, they will have problem. So one of their concern is actually pour point. Yeah. Lubricity, microbial contamination, this is something that they are looking into as well. But for us, we are in the final stage of development of a new product specifically to treat VLSFO. We know the basic problems, stability, compatibility, and of course we are launching a new product by end of this 2019. Yeah. In summary, when you are using VLSFO, these are the few problems again, same, compatibility, stability, burnability. This might be a problem because we have seen poor CCAI as well, and challenges with distillate fuel, lubricity, waxing, microbial, and viscosity. This cannot be taken care by additives. So this is how we can come to your help as well. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Our last speaker of the day, Dr. Vis. And I don't have to introduce Dr. Vis. He is known to all of you. He's a bunker guru. And today we are fortunate that he is here. So after Dr. Vis' speech, then we'll have a panel discussion with Q&A. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sparing a Monday afternoon of your precious time to be here. I think the gentleman from InnoSpec has actually covered everything. I don't have anything to say. It's a very extensive coverage of everything, but nevertheless, there are some nuances in facing the fuel problems, and there are little tricks, and you have to know what are those little tricks and where will you get that information and how you can use it. Okay? So when I walked in, somebody asked me, so you're going to speak, how is it going to be? I told him it's going to be good and original. The portion that is good is not original. The portion that is original is not going to be good. But that statement is attributable to Dr. Johnson, who was the first lexicographer of the English language, 1700. When in every place where we go, like Hong Kong, or Singapore, or Houston, or UK, they've all received any number of presentations on 2020. This is the hottest topic on earth. And many of them told me that at the end of this presentation, we don't know, you're just describing the problem. You're telling us what all problems you'll face. How does it make me wiser? How does it take away my concern and my worry? How I'm going to face this post-11-2020 problem with the fuel. So I thought it's better to state our stand on this first, and it's better, right or wrong, what we think is the best solution. See, ultimately a doctor has to take a decision. It's called Occam's razor. There are many symptoms. Finally, the doctor has to say, hey, you have this illness. That's why you're getting all the symptoms. Your knee is paining, your eyes are swollen, you have running temperature, but what is the problem? So when we are describing this 2020 fuel, what is our stand as an organization testing over 80,000 fuel samples from more than 30 countries? The kind of variety and experience that we feel, we should be having some opinion on which way to go. Unless I convey that, it doesn't make sense to you to tell you again and again what are the problems you have. That's what everybody has done. Okay? So we are telling you, continue the status quo. Okay? We are just keep it on this. Yeah. Continue on status quo. Continue using HSFO, but fit a scrubber. You've heard the plethora of problems associated with the fuel now. You want more tanks, you want more pipelines, you want more segregation, you want more blending. Why face all that? Just have one problem, which is to have the scrubber. And continue as you've been doing. Run on heavy high sulfur fuel, use the scrubber. When you come to the port, just change over to a distillate fuel. That's it. So the only change you have is the scrubber. This is our recommendation. Okay? Scrubbers are far less expensive. You see articles saying scrubber costing 5 million, 6 million. It's not true. We also manufacture scrubbers, though I'm not going to talk about it. But for a 10 to 12 megawatt engine, the scrubber costs only about 1.5 or even less. And then the installation costs another 0.7. So within 2 million, you have a scrubber. For most of it, about 60-70% of the engine megawatts are in the range of 10 to 12, maybe 13 megawatts. So then there is another question. We don't have money. Shipping is in doldrums. We are not getting revenue. You don't have to get revenue. There are a lot of agencies have come up who will fund your scrubber. Why? Because they will take the differential cost between high sulfur and low sulfur, and they will fund the scrubber for you. It's very similar to the solar systems being fitted all over US, I'm sure elsewhere as well. So you just show them the roof, they'll come and fit a solar unit there. They take some government subsidy, you pay some upfront amount, but the difference between the solar power cost and the grid cost is what they collect for the first 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. After that, the solar unit is yours, and they have collected the differential. So there's nothing going out of your pocket. The scrubber story is same. You just let them use the exhaust from your engine and let them scrub it for you, and they fund the scrubber. Now, in the case of scrubber, the return on investment, that's another most attractive thing, is about 1 year. At the most, it will be 1.2 or 1.3 years. The bigger the megawatt, the lesser the return on investment. So if you give it to that agency, in about, let's say, 1.5 years, the scrubber is yours. You've not paid a penny for it, and you can continue with the status quo. So I don't want to beat around the bush and tell you, why don't you do this? This is a straight path which is very clear. So if you ultimately, like that Gordian knot that Alexander broke, you can go on putting knots and knots, but the solution is straight and clear. Status quo, scrubber, get the funding from so many agencies who are giving, okay? And a lot of, another thing that was thrown at us is, oh, the scrubbers are giving problem. Now there are 3,000 scrubbers working. They've gotten rid of most of the problems. So this is not an issue now. Okay. So if you don't, I've already told you, I think you have heard enough on the multiple fuels, multiple suppliers. Do you know how many suppliers are there? When the 0.1% ultra low sulfur came into the market, there was 14 or 16 suppliers who jumped into it. Then as the problem surfaced, it got less and less, and only about 6 or 7 lasted. Those are all mostly big houses. The same story is going to happen with VLSFO. Lot of players, they don't have a history, they don't have an experience, and nobody knows if you keep that fuel for 6 months or 1 year, what will happen. They think you just mix it and use it, it's done, because there's a lot of profit in it. And you know the Houston story where 200 ships were badly affected. We had the main playing role in identifying those problems. That's a separate story, and we have a compendium listing all the problems and what we did. If you are interested, we will send it to you. So multiple contaminants, etc. So why is this hesitation? Because for the simple reason, doubts foster inaction. You can't decide. Because you're looking at 10 options. Why not this way? Why not that way? But please think, the path is very, very clear and straight. You don't have a problem after that. So, another familiar question, what will happen to all the bunker fuel if it is switched over? Out of the 200 plus million tons, about 30 million tons will remain in the bunker pool, and that will go on increasing as more and more ships go for bunkers. Another 25 million probably will escape compliance, and they might be using non-compliant fuel. Okay? Then 140 million tons are left. Now, initially, when we are talking about low sulfur fuel, a lot of people who are cautious will not go for VLSFO 0.5 because not everything is known about these fuels, so they'll go for MGO. Also because the differential cost between MGO and VLSFO is just about $20–30. Just for $20–30, they may not want to jeopardize the safety and the proper functioning of the engines, so they'll go. Progressively, as they get to know more and more about VLSFO, that quantity will increase. So, Shell, Exxon, BP, they're all confirming that 0.1 and 0.5 product is really available and ready to meet the demand. So no more can you say, well, the fuel may not be there. This is one of all the confusing thoughts in your mind, and there are a lot of people who have gone around writing articles without knowing anything. I really have very little respect for journalists who are continuously, even today, they are writing for a 10 megawatt, the scrubber will cost 5 to 6 million. You at least ask somebody. At least ask somebody before you make a statement like that. A lot of people are reading articles and they make their decisions based on such wrong information. Okay, now everybody says fuel is available. Will they be compatible with each other? It's a big question. One of the big players here, he says, yes, I'm going to give you 0.5% fuel, but the one that I supply in Rotterdam is not compatible with what I supply in Sydney. So what do you do? So then another one says, I can give you excellent fuel which will not present any compatibility problems to you, but I can only supply in 7 ports around the world. If you are a tramping vessel, how can you confine yourself to just 7 ports? Are you going to divert each time hundreds of miles just to pick up the fuel? Okay. Now, as I make this presentation, I'll give you some small, simple nuggets which will be of use to you. Let's say you haven't tested about compatibility. Is there a simple thumb rule? Yes. 2 fuels that you mix, if their density and viscosity are very near to each other, very near means 10%, 15% difference is okay. They are likely to be compatible. Another point to look at is pour point. If one fuel is highly paraffinic, its pour point will be high. Okay? Another one may be more aromatic, the pour point will be low. So 3 things if you look at: pour point, density, viscosity. You'll be able to say, even without doing any test, if 2 fuels are going to be compatible or not. This is a very useful piece of information for you. Refining. Okay. Automobile diesel is entering the market already, because you cannot get this kind of low sulfur fuel anywhere and everywhere you go. So when the supplier needs, he will get the automobile diesel and give it to you. Nothing wrong with that, but remember, it is ultra low sulfur, 15 ppm. 15 ppm, and when you use 15 ppm ultra low sulfur diesel, you have to be sure if the lubricity will be okay. Generally, in the lab tests we find, if you really buy automotive diesels, it's not a problem about lubricity, because I think they make sure that they put all the additives necessary to make sure that the lubricity is, that is the scratch area is above and beyond the limit, okay? But whose responsibility is it? Just come to this, another interesting question. He supplies to you, he says this is distillate fuel. Now, it is his responsibility, it is his statutory responsibility to supply a fuel with proper, adequate lubricity. But you take the fuel somewhere and then you are in the Atlantic, mid-Atlantic, there is a problem. So what will you do? Come back to go after the supplier? No. So the prudent thing is, even if he says it is okay, for a $200 test, it's better to test it. And when he tests it and tells you that he has tested it for lubricity, remember, he gets one shipload of 40,000 or 80,000 and he does one test on it. And he says, my product has adequate lubricity. But you are getting 2,000 tons or 1,000 tons of fuel for your ship. In your interest, it is better to test the lubricity. A lot of American companies and European companies, they don't care. They ask us to do the test. It's not worth having a lubricity problem just to save $200. And as you know, what is received from the refiner is not what is delivered on the ship. Because the bunker traders have a place in this game. Even today, you can buy in Rotterdam, straight from the refinery. It costs about $2 to $3 more than if you buy from the tankage. The refiner sells it to the trader keeps it in the tank, and he will sell it to you for $2 to $3 less. What is this magic? I'll tell you a simple thing. There are refineries in Cochin and Chennai. They make 380 grade fuel, about 40,000 to 80,000 tons a month. And that is purchased by the fuel traders from Singapore. They pay flat price. And the refineries are quite happy that they are getting flat price. And they load it on their ships and bring it to Singapore. It costs $7 per metric ton to transport it from Cochin or Chennai to Singapore. So you would think the price they would sell in Singapore would be flat plus 7. No, it's flat minus 10. How does it happen? Once you bring a fuel and put it in a tank, then that's where all the mixing takes place. That's where you add a lot of low-cost items and you can afford to bring down the price to competitive levels. When I make this statement, let me qualify it. It's not every supplier. There are a lot of suppliers with high levels of integrity, but there are a few suppliers who do it, and we know they're doing it. So the last point is, if the price spread between VLSFO and MGO is not significant, nobody will go for VLSFO. They would rather go for MGO. That's where the education and experience of using VLSFO will slowly change the picture. IMO issuing advisories and guidelines. I want to make a very important point here. Usually, the IMO circulars and instructions and so on will be quite confusing. You will not be able to understand, though it is English, and you can interpret in two different ways the same statement made by them. But definitely, this time it is different. For the 2020 fuels, IMO has come up with a massive amount of explanations, guidelines for each of the issues faced, and they have published them. I would very strongly urge you, I don't have to give lectures on this. It's given beautifully at their website. I will talk about that. But every kind of thing, you know, you have a problem when you go to a port. You go to different ports, each port interprets the rules in a different way. They also have certain leeway and liberty to interpret it. Now, it says, sample the fuel to find out the sulfur. Now you have a Marpol sample there. So what should he do? He should take the Marpol sample and see whether the sulfur is conforming or not conforming. If you go to Germany, he will only sample from the service tank. He says, I don't know, you can put anything in your bottle. I don't know what you're using. I want to find out what you're using. So I'll go to, and sometimes in his anxiety, he will not put, if you go to a service tank and draw from the bottom, really you don't get what is there in the tank. You get all kinds of mud. Then he goes to the filter and collects a sample. So each country is interpreting and executing the implementation in the way that they like. So again, that's why they have harmonized. This is how every port state or flag state shall interpret the IMO rule. This is one of them. There are several, I'll just go through them. Guidance on best practice for fuel oil suppliers for assuring the quality. Guidance on best practice for fuel oil purchases of fuel used on board the ship. There is a difference between the fuel that is delivered to the ships and the fuel that is used by the ship. Very significant difference, because IMO says the supplier can supply 0.5%, as we call VLSFO, but he has got to supply it to 0.50 sulfur. Whereas, when they come and check the sulfur on board, you get the benefit of ISO 4259. That means it can be 0.5 plus 0.59 times of the reproducibility. That means it can be up to 0.55. They allow where quality of fuel used on board. The parameter used is different. But the supplier doesn't get this benefit. The supplier has to supply 0.50. Okay, these are all the final points that I want you to know. 2019 guidelines for consistent implementation by various people who are in charge of enforcement and implementation. Port state control, then port state control or contingency measure for addressing non-compliant fuel. Let's say in good faith you ordered fuel here in Singapore and you were told that it is 0.5% sulfur. He gave you a BDN. You took the BDN. You also took a sample and sent it to, let's say, Viswa. We tested it, we found it is 0.59. But the BDN says 0.5. What do you do? What do you do under those circumstances? Are you guilty or you are not guilty? Okay, these are the issues that they have now addressed, and they have given clear guidelines on how the interpretations are to be done. It's available, ready, free on the website. Please download and use them. Okay? You don't need somebody like me sitting and lecturing to you, but it's available to you. Extraordinary work is being done by IMO this time. Please take note of it. MPC circular guidelines onboard sampling and verification of the sulfur content. That's the onboard sampling. I told you. Where do you sample for sulfur? Is it the Marpol sample? Is it service tank? Is it filter? Where do you sample it? Circular on early application of the approved amendments to the verification procedures. Okay, that will come to that. MEPC circular on guidance on indication of ongoing compliance in case of failure of a single monitoring instrument and recommended actions to take if EGCS. This pertains to EGCS pertains to scrubber has got an instrument called continuous emission monitor. It costs more than $50,000 for that instrument. It's supposed to continuously record the sulfur content in the exhaust gas before and after, definitely after scrubbing. Okay? So, supposing that instrument fails, what do you do? Are you supposed to be putting high sulfur fuel into the atmosphere, which is illegal, but you don't have any proof? So, should you go to the nearest port, a port of refuge to repair the instrument, or can you just go to the port which you are supposed to go and then repair it? If you can't repair it, what do? Then you are allowed to take another fuel which is known to be of a low sulfur till you repair it. These are all so many doubts which used to be covered under FAQs, frequently asked questions, but these are available with IMO today. Please use them. Industry guidelines are also there. When I say industry guidelines, classification societies are giving their own guidelines in addition to the IMO. Most of it is repetitive, but each one may have one single nugget which may be useful to you. Okay? Now, then you have Intertanko issuing elaborate instructions on the fuel. Very, very useful information. And if you are a member of the Intertanko, I think even if you are not a member, if you go to their website, you get very good information. You can be a member of IBIA, only $100 a year. And all the work that they do is available to you on the website. Please use that, because people have spent a lot of time, discussions, clarifications, and finally they've written it. Don't go to a journalist and try to read it from a magazine, because journalist has to write something sensational so that you get excited and worked up. Okay? But these are solid people who study the rules and who provide the explanation to you. Risk assessment. Okay. Now, having said that you can take everything from the IMO website, why do you need an agency like Viswa to help you? You don't need, you may think, but we add some value, because we are getting fuels, as I told you, from 90 different countries, and there are 1,500 ports. We get, every day we get 300, 350 samples. We have a much better picture of what is happening on a global basis. Your ships are going all over the place. So even though you may know all the rules, it's better to consult with us and prepare a ship-specific implementation plan. That specific implementation plan, that also IMO tells you what you should have. But what all should it cover? What are all the information that you need? Once you take the trouble to prepare it, then you don't have to worry about it. You will know for each contingency how you have to deal with it. Okay. Identify technical capability of the vessel to handle new fuels. What kind of purifier you have? What kind of a filtration? Even today, there are a lot of ships where the filter size is 25 to 50 microns, whereas a lot of enlightened operators have changed over to 10 micron, and they have saved themselves a lot of problems. They have repeatedly told me, after changing to 10 microns, I've had very little problem. I don't know how many of you, if you check, there are many who are running the engines with 50 micron and 25 micron sizes. Okay? And purifier. So your purifier may be the old type, so your limitation is 991. And if you have a RMK 1020 or 1010, you can't use that purifier. All these issues, which is the technical capability of the vessel. Do it once and use an expert and keep that record forever for the life of the ship. For any contingency, any problem, you know how to deal with it. This is the opportunity to do it within the next less than 6 months that you have. Any change to tank and fuel system configurations, tank cleaning, heating requirement. Do you know that your tank cleaning, tank heating is enough? Now you're going to put some distillate fuel, but distillate fuel also has to be heated. If it has a lot of wax, you need to heat it. Only thing, on the other hand, you have to make sure the viscosity doesn't drop below 2, but you have to heat it to keep the wax in solution. So, do you have heating arrangement? This is the time, once in the lifetime of the ship, you take the trouble to completely study every aspect of it and put it in record as specific for each fuel. Then discuss supply options with the bunker suppliers. You know, particularly those who are ship management, which is a lot of you here, you think that you don't have a relationship with the supplier except at the time when he just comes and bunkers on board. Because you say, what can I do? Everything is by charter. It's not correct. You've got to have a dialogue with him. Okay? You should not be content with BDN. You have to tell him, I want a certificate of quality, wherein you must tell me what is the pour point. There are several parameters which are not shown in BDN. This is another nugget of an advice to you. You say, I will not accept it. I want a certificate of quality. Okay? If he says, no, I will not give it, and you are not the one ordering the fuel, then you tell the charterer, I cannot guarantee, because there are so many blends and so many things happening, you have to force him to give me. I'm sure he'll do it. At the end of it, there is also a commercial interest. So he has to, maybe once or twice, he'll try to browbeat you, after that he will deliver. And once you have a COQ, you have a very good picture of the fuel, what problems it's likely to give. Okay. Discuss options, suppliers, how to deal with non-compliant. If the fuel is non-compliant, what do we do? Or you are not able to get compliant fuel, then you go for FONA, Fuel Oil Non-Availability Report. There is a whole section on IMO. How do you fill up the form? And you send it to the port saying, I tried my best, I'm not able to get, so permit me to use high sulfur fuel. I have talked to Coast Guard top people. They say as long as you made an honest attempt, we will permit you to use high sulfur fuel. Okay? They are not monsters. If you don't have, bring the ship to a stop or something. You made an attempt, you can't get it. So these are things, anyway, you are going to get full explanation on this. Guidelines for new fuels being developed. That is the PAS. I have this PAS here. I want you to take a look at it. It's available in the public. It is an interim document before the standard comes. The last standard is 2017. Before the next standard comes, they have floated this. It's got some very, very good points. I'll talk about it. It's a wonderful document. Just like the ISO document, this is another wonderful document. Just go through it. A lot of questions on your mind are answered here. So it doesn't look like a huge mountain that you don't know how to handle that problem. Okay? New fuels, varying viscosities, different heating requirements, storage temperatures. Okay, then of course the lube oil and CLO. So when you are doing that document for a ship-specific plan, you should take care of all these questions so that the next chief engineer or the next captain just refers to the document. He knows what to do, depending on what fuel is being offered to him in some out of the way port where he has to go. So the industry is plan, prepare, and practice. Prepare timeline for changeover. Don't wait for 2020 to arrive. Carry out tank cleaning from now on. Okay, supplier to confirm that all tests are carried out. Then all cold flow issues have to be addressed, and you've got to have the solution in your ship's specific plan. Singapore-based shipping company took a 0.5 sulfur fuel in uncleaned tanks. The sulfur value at the entry was point. That is what he did was he didn't clean the tank. He conducted it as a test, and it was done in a most thorough manner. We have all the records which we can share with you. Just flushed it. And of course, the InnoSpec man said there was a chunk of dirt at the bottom. But on the walls and so on, we don't know. But all that happened was that 0.5% sulfur fuel went up to 0.59. So you know, even if you don't flush, even if you don't clean the tank, the increase is somewhere in that region. That means if you flush it next time, that 0.9 will come down, and the tank will get clean each time. And that is where you can add some additives as well. Those are some very effective, powerful additives which are detergents, clean up the tank. Progressively clean it, 2-3 cycles, maybe lasting for 4 months, 5 months. After that, the tanks are clean. You don't have to go and clean the tanks. There are people who have done this test, and their records are available. So you don't have to think this is just an idea, pie in the sky. It's not. It has been actually carried out. How am I doing on time? So Fonar, I mentioned to you, fuel oil non-availability report. This has been around even from that 0.1% ultra low sulfur fuel. It's not new. And if you go to the Coast Guard website, Fonar is explained very, very well. Okay, in addition to IMO itself. IMO is not talking about 0.5%, but for 0.1%, Coast Guard published all the Fonar details. And they give a score, how many people use the Fonar document. So 2 decimal reporting, I told you, it's a 2 decimal reporting for the supplier, but if you are the ship, you get the benefit of the ISO 4259, some variation in that. Yeah, this is the same thing I'm saying here. Samples taken on board the ship in use on board sample should be deemed meeting the spec provided the lab test results do not exceed plus 0.59 R. That means 0.10 can be 0.11, 0.50 can be 0.55. This is for the ship. It's not available for the supplier, which they are calling it as a delivered sample. Okay. Anticipated problems, you heard enough of it, coming from different regions of the world, lot of stability issues, then compatibility issues due to complex fuel blends, waxy products, cold flow problems, high cat fines. Some of the low sulfur fuels now are getting cat fines in the region of 50, 55 ppm, very high. And when you're talking about 50, 55, do not believe that your purifier will remove all the cat fines. Okay? When the purifier, when you buy it, they do a test in this thing under controlled conditions. They'll show you that 90% of the cat fines are removed. But after 6 months use on the ship, we have not seen many of them with the ability to remove more than 60%. Many of them are even up to 30%. So when you have, let's say 50 ppm, and you are only removing 60% of it, that's only 30 ppm is gone. There is still 20 ppm entering the engine. Keep that in mind. Low flash point due to use of land and road distillates. See here another important thing. We go to the service, like Jiffy Lube. We go to the service station, and they drain the lube oil that you're using, and then they fill up with new lube oil. What happens to that oil? Do you know how much is the quantity of that oil? In the US alone, it is 400 billion gallons. 400 billion gallons of the oil drained from us. Now, what do you do with that oil? It is being re-refined. That means they take that oil and put it through a refinery. Okay? It's called re-refining. So what happens is, many of the cars which are using gasoline, petrol, there is a leakage past the piston ring. It's gone and mixed with the crankcase lube oil. So when you're doing the re-refining, about 5 to 6% is actually gasoline that comes out. That is almost sold for a very low price, and that is mixed in the distillate fuel. That's why you find a lot of flash points in distillate fuel, or usually a distillate fuel 75 at least flash point, it will come to very near 60, 61, 59, because this has been added to reduce the cost. Okay. Low flash point, high CCI due to difference in density viscosity, their own set of problem, bacteria, low flash point, flames, cold flow, etc. Now, just to give you an idea, these are about 25-30 samples of VLSFO we tested in the lab. And you see in the Asia one, cat fines are high. In the Middle East one, the compatibility was very poor. And in the Europe one, pour point is very high. So each one has a problem. They have not yet settled down. Okay? But it will happen, of course. Now, all bunker fuels are a mix of these three. Okay? So, if we could identify, which is what we are working on now, if we could say that each fuel, so much paraffin, so much naphthalene, so much aromatics, exactly, it gives us two major benefits. One is, we can tell how this fuel will behave with regard to ignition and combustion. It's got a lot more of paraffin, ignition will be very good. Okay, aromatics, combustion will be steady, but there will be delayed combustion. Each one we can correlate this. Secondly, you don't have to do a compatibility test, because if you have paraffin in one sample and enough aromatics in the second sample, mixing it, you know you will not have an incompatibility problem. So you have to determine the three parts of that, which we are actually currently working on some new instrumentation, including NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance-based instruments to identify these three parts is going to give us a very major benefit in identifying and classifying the fuels, how they are going to behave in the engine. So, new test methods, each one for the asphaltene range in which they are working. 7061 is the one that's being used, what they call as the Turbiscan reserve stability number thing. But this 7157 S value, P value are all new methods being tried out, and they are in the market, and CMAC is looking at all of them to make a decision. You may need to use all, but each instrument is about 40, 50, 60,000. Okay? So depending upon the asphaltene content, you have to use different instruments. So a few interesting nuggets, and this is the spot test that we do. Okay? Now this spot test is okay if your asphaltene is 3% or more. If it is less, if it's a low asphaltene fuel, you will get false positives. What is a false positive? You get a ring, but there is really no incompatibility. How does that happen? There are two types of waxes in the fuel. Okay? One is a light wax which permeates through the filter paper very fast. The other one is heavy wax which moves slowly. So when you put the drop in a drop test on a filter paper, the light one occupies the full dot area, but the heavy one is not able to travel that far. Where the heavy one stops and the light one, you get a ring. But it doesn't even have asphaltene. If there is no asphaltene, why should you worry about a ring? But you will get a ring. That is the false positive I'm talking about. So currently used. So if the asphaltene content is less, then better to go for TSP. Okay, and that you do by 24-hour aging. Now again, in this 24-hour aging, there is an interesting thing. If you keep the container completely covered, the value you get will be less than if you keep it open. It's the same thing. The fuel that is in the tank, when you test the TSP on that, it will be higher than what you did in the lab. These are all the finer points that you should be aware. Different results possible. I told you about repeatability. If you keep the flask open, the TSP will go up. Real life on-board condition may be worse than the test results. This is copied from InnoSpec because it's really a beautiful representation. So now there are two fuels. Take this as two fuels. Each one is stable. There's no stability problem. Each one is stable. The asphaltene is floating. It's not settling down. It's not agglomerating. But when you mix the two, then it loses the resins. It's not just mixing. Usually mixing is also accompanied by maybe you're heating the tank. Okay? Or you're having more aromatics and so on. So some disturbance takes place. Immediately what happens, the protective InnoSpec. We have no commercial interest, but we share information, we try to learn, because we feel there is a lot of knowledge that we can pass on to you, our customers, based on what we learn from what they have done in that lab. So here they say they put some additives here. So this agglomeration is prevented. So what we saw in the previous slide, this doesn't take place. So I asked the InnoSpec man, not this gentleman, he's gone, okay. Yeah, no, I asked your boss in UK, I said, let's say two are incompatible and asphaltene agglomerated and deposited at the bottom. Can I use your additive to de-agglomerate it? Because you're stuck. You're there, you got the asphaltene precipitated at the bottom. Can I de-agglomerate it? His answer is yes. You can de-agglomerate, but it will take 3 or 4 days. And our additives can help. That's what we use for cleaning the tanks. The action is de-agglomeration of the stuff that is that is his answer. Okay? I was quite surprised. I thought once precipitated you're stuck with it. But he says no. For 3-4 days of use, you can de-agglomerate it. He just quote unquote his statement. Okay, tank cleaning. I've already told you about this. We have some stories of 10 tons of 3% sulfur, 490 tons of VLSFO with 0.48 sulfur. After mixing, it came to 0.53. Okay. Another 0.44 came to 0.49, and these are without manual cleaning. This is the performance. Just gives you an idea what will happen. Okay. Distillate fuel issues, I think he covered it very nicely. Lubricity, accelerated wear of pumps and infection. Lubricity is, the instrument is based on a striker and an anvil. It keeps striking. The medium is immersed in the oil at a particular temperature and viscosity. Then there is a mark made on the ball, and you measure the wear area on the ball. So if the lubricity is below limit, then the wear area will become small. If it is large, then you don't have to worry. The standard is given as 520 or 620 micron size. That's the limit given. Okay. So we do a lot of lubricity tests. A lot of American companies, they don't trust. They also buy ultra low sulfur. So they give us that work. Long-term storage and thermal stability and oxidation, burning of fuel pumps and injectors. You know, when you clean the tanks and all that, using some additives, then the detergents take all the muck and fill up the whole fuel system. Just to give you an idea, in Dubai, every year they sell the muck accumulated in the bottom of the storage tanks every year. Guess how much is it? It's auction. It's 32,000 tons. 32,000 tons of muck is at the bottom of the storage tank. So remember, unless you're watching, you're settling your service tank more than service, the settling tank, the muck is accumulating. Your storage tank muck is accumulating. You've got to be watching and you've got to be cleaning. Okay. bacterial contamination, ITA and possible corrosion, cold flow issues, viscosity. I mean, these are all distillate fuel issues. So because you change over to a distillate fuel, don't think your problems will come to an end. Distillate fuels have their own set of problems as well. Okay? Now, cold flow problems. I think he explained it clearly. I don't want to go over it. Am I on the time? Yeah, okay. Then bacteria. Okay, this is, I will only tell you one thing. There is an interesting story during the first desert storm of the elder bush. All the American tanks, trucks, everything was kept in Kuwait. So then when Saddam attacked, they said, come on, go and march into Iraq. Unfortunately, no truck could be started because they had used distillate fuel and they were there for 3 years. So the whole bottom was full of bacteria and fungi. So they had to completely drain out the oil. So 40 ships went from the US carrying fresh distillate fuel, and only then they could carry out the bomb. At that point, they established a research on what actually happens on distillate fuel. It's a ASTM publication, 56 pages. The research and the findings in that, please buy it. It's available online, maybe $40 or something. It's an incredible amount of information you'll get on what happens to distillate fuel. Why does bacteria come? Only because of water. How will it form? In what angle? In what stage of the tank? You know, and then what biocides to use? Everything is available. So instead of telling you about it, but I'm telling you the source so that you can just order that book and have it in your hands. Okay? Okay. So I think this is about the last. So they say that all data is not information, all information is not intelligence, and all intelligence is not wisdom. Ultimately, when you reach my age, at least hopefully, you will get some wisdom. It's not about knowledge or intelligence, it's a wisdom, okay? So we recommend status quo, except you fit a filter. Talking of wisdom, I just, when there's a joke, this is only a joke, when the president, the new president came, and he was very particular, everybody should work very hard, and he entered an office, so they all knew that he was there and they were working very hard, except for one fellow who was standing like this. So the president went to him, he said, hey, come here. He said, yes. What are you doing here? You think I will tolerate this kind of laziness, right? When everybody is working? What's your salary? He said, $200 a week. Okay, here is $800. Take this and get lost. Don't come back here. And then he looked at all of them and said, you know, I mean what I say. I will not stand for sloth. So one of the guys stood up and said, sorry sir, he came to deliver the pizza. You paid him $800 and sent him away. So, okay, so if you go for open loop scrubber, which is preferred by 94% of the companies, if you go for scrubber, don't hedge in 2020 because the prices of high sulfur fuel are going to crash in that year. Okay? Consider hedging only after 2021. Do not jump to new fuels till their performance in engine, quality during storage period, cold flow properties, compatibility, stability, availability are well established. it is not a clever idea to experiment with new unknown fuels. Some suppliers, directly or through charterers, may tempt you with low prices. We get that request all the time. Please see the specification. This is being offered to us at $100 less than the market. Can we start using it? Don't do it. Don't get tempted unless you really know the fuel. In the prevailing confusion, those going for compliant fuel will go for only MGO, MDO. I said it already. If you choose to go for scrubbers, we are the horizontal scrubber. We've got 2 awards now. And remember the 3 P's for 2020: plan, prepare, and practice. I don't want to go into scrubber discussion. Somebody told me, please don't make it into, because we've been talking about scrubber a lot, so I will not talk. Just show you some pictures of the scrubbers being fabricated. This is what they call as the factory test FAT. So as we simulate the whole thing, and then we carry out a test of the control system if it acts. Okay, that's the end of this. And thank you.
Thank you. Lots of information. Thank you, Dr. Vis. Now, the last part of it, I know that we are behind schedule, but we will welcome some question from the floor, and then not to stand long between the dinner and this panel discussion. So please feel free to throw the question without any delay. Anyone?
So no questions? That's good. I was dreading a lot of questions. Yeah. Oh, okay, sure.
Good evening, Dr. Vish. Thank you first for a very informative seminar, very well prepared by everyone. My question is this: you did mention just now that some of these chemicals, in order to break up the asphaltenes which have settled in the bottom of the tanks, will take about 3 to 4 days. Now, generally, if you're talking about settling tank and service tanks, which has got a capacity of only 1 day, or maybe the max 2 days, how are these chemicals going to actually work?
Yeah, actually, it has to be in the storage tanks. What you say is correct. It has to be done in the storage tank. In the settling tank, only if your ship is idle and you have a idle in the sense, let's say you are in port, you're not using the main engine, you have a accumulated precipitation of asphaltene. Maybe you can use the additive and get rid of it. I am not certifying that it will do. I was equally surprised that he said we can de-agglomerize the fuel by using our additive in 3 to 4 days use. So yes, it has to be in a storage tank. I agree.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think maybe I just add on top a bit on that. I agree with what Dr. Vis is saying. We need to put it in the storage tank. But if you look at the capacity of the storage tank, let's say you have a capacity of say 1,000. So how many flow? We are only recommending 3 cycles in the storage tank. So you can imagine that 1,000 meter cube, if you divide it to the capacity of your settling tank, service tank, how many flows of cycles of oil that you have actually gone through settling service tank? That is actually much more. That itself will slowly clean up the service tank, settling tank. We actually don't put anything into the service settling tank. It's all in the storage tank. So the number of flows that goes through your bunker tank is so much less compared to what actually goes through your settling service tank. That actually cleans up the tank. I hope that answers the question.
Okay.
You wanted it.
Yes. Also to Dr. Vis, we were talking very Yes, hello. I'm Pierre Fabricius from Bridgman Shipping. You're talking very, very clearly and very happily about scrubbers. But what about the scrubbers? Each scrubber needs to have energy. We know that. So that means you need to run with at least one more generator. What about accumulating all the water? That tank you will need for that one there will be for the closed loop, will be another tank or a very good tank coating for sure, because it will be very toxic. So taking care of those two things, then the economy in the scrubbers is also falling a little bit apart. Or am I wrong?
They say the power consumed is about 2% for the scrubber, for all the associated pumps and everything. The consumption of additional power for fitting the scrubber is about 2%. Yes, you have to fit, particularly if you are in closed loop mode or hybrid mode, you need some additional tanks. And the issue of discharging this near the port has gotten into a big controversy, because Germany announced that we won't allow that because it's killing marine life when you discharge that. It's coming out at 6.5 pH. And, but as soon as they said it, a lot of countries showed that they are more, what shall I say, more royal than the king. What's the terminology? Huh? More loyal than the king, and they announced, yes, we won't allow, including Singapore. But the study by the Japanese, a very detailed study, plus another study by Carnival Shipping, they said there's nothing happening to the marine life. There's no need to restrict the flow of this water because it's already treated to above 6.5 pH. It doesn't kill anything.
Then let me continue. What is the difference about putting it into the water instead of putting it up to the air?
Okay, if you really look at it, there is a calculation which says all the sulfur on earth and from the sea is also earth under the water, okay? It will cover about 1.2 meters thickness of sulfur on the globe. Now, the sulfur that is in the air which you're breathing is about 12 microns. That's all. The problem with sulfur is when it is in the air. It is in water. In millions and millions of tons it's in water, it's on earth. What you are concerned about is you don't want to breathe it. Only when it is in air and you are breathing it, you are worried about the harm. Otherwise, sulfur is there everywhere. In the bottom of the sea, there is sulfur. So you put some more sulfur there, it's not going to do anything to the sea.
Thank you very much.
Any more question before the dinner? Kapil? Now I have to point finger.
Thank you.
No question? Yes, Chair? Okay, otherwise, thank you very much. You can ask question during dinner session. And thank you again, Monday afternoon, to come down here. Hopefully it was, you got some information out of all this presentation and different perspective from engine maker, from additive supplier, and from ourselves. Thank you again. Hope to see you.